slated to be taken down, or is this just preemptive?
So a little bit of both. So as I mentioned in the other council meeting, we've had more issues with trees in the last 3 months than we have in the last 13 years. Mr. Shreve has been working with an arborist who came through and looked at several trees, determined on the city side some that had to come down. And so we had to take those down, which kind of wiped out the funds that were in the account for this year. So I wanted to appropriate some more just to make sure that we can be preventative and taking down any trees before something happens on our side. I believe there's a list that we want to.
And this is, sorry, and this is trees that are on city property.
Correct.
Rather than.
Correct. So for example, we own
Private.
2 lots at the dead end of 3rd Street behind Angie's restaurant. Took down 2 trees that had kind of grown into each other that were close to the right-of-way, and they were deemed to be unsafe, so we took those down.
And is there an estimate on how many trees this $20,000 will cover?
Off the top of my head, I don't have that.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions on the committee? Any from the from council?
After the end of the year, the money's not used, it'll go back into the general fund.
Gotcha. Okay. May I have a motion to call for this piece of legislation?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We don't have anything pending, and for miscellaneous discussion, I wanted to do an update on the road program. So Barbicas has completed milling and intermediate course paving on a number of streets: Way, Yale, Louise Court, East Lake, East Baird, East Park, 2nd Street Northeast, Azalea, 5th Street, and Oak. So they're not finished with those, but they have finished about halfway. This week they're going to be beginning the drive/apron and curb ramps on the streets that I just listed off. That will begin this week. Residents will be notified. Remaining streets that have not been started yet are Lambert, St. Clair, Grand, State, and they're about 2 weeks from starting. Just wanted to give that quick update. If anybody else has any questions about that, you're giving me crazy eyes.
Have we heard anything, Mayor, have we run into issues that's going to eat into some of that money yet on the roads that we have fixed?
There's a few homes when it's almost impossible to meet with every resident from every road. We did meet with some residents and there were some curbing issues, so we wanted to replace that since we're there. But there was some kind of built-in
Right.
funds already, but nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from council have any questions on the update for anyone? The gallery? Okay.
I have something else.
Go ahead.
Street cutouts. What are we doing?
That's for Mr.
I don't want to bring it up again, but there's many street cutouts that I see that have been there forever.
Gotcha. We haven't had that update in a minute, have we?
No.
Well, so with that, we had discussed making a shared file that was going to be shared, and I know I had spoke with Council President, Mr. Greer, and him and I have failed to put together the shared drive. I do know, so with talking to managers, they are out doing those cutouts as weather permits. I was just, as you brought them up, I was going to pull up my spreadsheet here and see where they're at because I haven't physically sent anything. But I had instructed them to start filling out another form because I thought it was shared with Lori. Found out that it wasn't shared with Lori, and so we kind of were reworking how we were going to share stuff, and I haven't followed through with that. So I do need to do that.
Because we haven't seen any sheets, street cutout sheets in, I don't know, couple months.
I can look back there and see what I thought. But it was when we started discussion of creating a shared file, and like I said, that has not been followed through with. So let me work on that, and I'll try to get it here ASAP.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Anyone else for miscellaneous? And may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Make that motion?
A second.
We are adjourned at 6:05 PM.
Thank you, Mrs. Beck. Next up is Environmental Health and Social Services with Mrs. Hager. Mrs. Hager is absent, so co-chair, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Time is 6:06, so we're in council chambers. I would like to call this the Health and Social Service meeting to order. All members of my committee are present except Mrs. Hager. Tonight, we have no requests for legislation, and we don't have any pending legislation. Do we have anything for health and social services in the gallery or in the body? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
I'll second.
Second, thank you, Mr. Greer. We are adjourned at 6:07. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. All right, next up is Planning, Annexation, and Codes with Mr. Hedick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, Annexation, and Codes. It's Monday, July 7th, 2025, 6:08, Council Chambers. The committee is present, which consists of Councilors Thompson, Harris, President Greer, and myself as chair, and those noted. A few requests tonight. First off, letter from Law Director Miller requesting legislation to amend Ordinance 18-2022, amending Barberton Codified Ordinance, Chapter 1462, ICC International, excuse me, Property Maintenance Code to reflect a change in wording, emergency wording, one reading requested. Did everybody see the change on that one? Are there any questions on this from the body? Valerie? Seeing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Next is letter from Law Director Miller amending Ordinance 118-2024, Chapter 1478 of the Barberton Codified Ordinances for the revised rental property registration program to reflect a change in wording, emergency wording, one reading requested. Are there any questions from the body on this? From the gallery? Seeing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is a request from myself to rescind Ordinance 80-2025. That was the original Community Entertainment District. There was an error in the procedure of doing it. Are there any questions on this?
What was the error?
According to the ORC codes, prior to passage, it had to have been published 2 consecutive weeks in the newspaper of general circulation, and it was not. So this could not have been passed. It needs to be rescinded, and now that it's being published, we're going to be redoing it. Any other questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
And the final request is from myself, and the mayor sent it in as well, to create the Community Entertainment District, which we now have, I believe, has been published. Director Miller, do you know if it was published last week? Do you know if the notice was published in the paper last week?
I did not ask Hannah before I got here, I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Well, we will see that it's published before we vote to it again this time, so we get it right. I have a motion to call for this.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's all the requests we have. Is there any miscellaneous for planning? Is Director Carr here? I don't see her.
No, she's not.
All right. Anything for planning? Gallery? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 6:11.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. Next up, going with tradition with finance and personnel going first, we do have a special rules marketing development on the agenda. I'll ask just one more time, Ms. Gerhart, would you like to hold that? All right. Seeing that, I won't call on you for that special rules marketing and development that was scheduled for today. And next up is finance and personnel, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call the Finance and Personnel Committee to order. It is Monday, July 7th, 2025, 6:12 p.m. here in council chambers. All members of my committee are present, which includes myself as chair, Mr. Heidick, Mr. Griffin, Mr. Greer. All other council members are also present with the exception of Mrs. Jennifer Hager, who is absent, and guest as noted on my agenda sheet. We have a few requests for legislation, the first being a request from Stacy Carr, our planning director, requesting legislation to allow for the payment of 4 past due invoices to Rental Consulting Solutions. Emergency wording and 1 rating is requested. That is attached. Makes sense to do 1 rating since these are past due. Mrs. Carr did state that there is a plan for, or a new process in place for how and who pays invoices in the planning department, so hopefully this doesn't happen again. Are there any remarks? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Who is, how did we get 4 past due? How does that happen?
That's a good question. Just, she had said, without realizing there would be a shortage, staff paid the professional service invoices under economic development, thus creating a date issue with the attached invoices for past contracts.
Does that contract come from the planning department?
Mrs. Carr's not here to.
The rental contract?
Yeah.
Yes, and it's specific to economic development.
Thank you.
Any other questions or remarks? Do I have a motion to call for this?
Motion?
In a second?
Second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Alright. Alright, next we have a request referred from Safety, a letter from Chief Morber, Barberton Police Department, requesting legislation to appropriate $70,810.84 from the unappropriated item of the city grant fund to the police department's budget for the city grant fund for body camera payment. Emergency wording is requested. This grant was applied for, we received it for body cameras. Are there any remarks? Hearing none, do I have a motion to call?
So moved.
Thank you. In a second.
Second?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have a letter from Jamie Eisman, Director of Public Safety and Human Resources, requesting legislation to amend Ordinance 73-2024, which amended Ordinance 44-2023, employees not included in bargaining pay grades. Emergency wording and 1 reading is requested. This is regarding part-time dispatcher, jailer, juvenile diversion officer, reserve police officers, school crossing guards, part-time construction inspectors, and interns, just to raise that pay a little bit. Are there any remarks? Yes.
So we, excuse me, we amended an ordinance last year for 1 in 23, and then we're amending one this year for the 1 in 24. Is it for the same positions or different positions?
The regarding references, the last ordinance, it's going to change. So we have not adjusted these wages here since 2023.
Okay.
But we did have other adjustments last year to different part-time positions in '24.
Okay. Figured if we were doing it yearly, we might just want to
Yeah, catch them up together would be
get them
good.
caught
So
up,
this
if
was
that
the
makes
other
sense.
part
They're
that was not
different.
included, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or remarks? Seeing none, do I have a motion to call?
Motion?
Thank you, and a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have a letter from Jeremy Flaker, Finance Director, requesting legislation to amend 120-2006. Mr. Flaker is asking to amend the amount from $5,000 to $1,005,000. Emergency wording, one reading requested. Mr. Flaker had stated this is to incorporate a blanket PO for Summit County for the health insurance, so we don't have to enter a new PO every month. Are there any remarks or anything else you want to say, Mr. Flaker?
I can discuss it a little more. So, in the audit, there's different findings that they could come up with, and so one of the findings they came up with was a verbal to us regarding blanket purchase orders. So, that ordinance from 2006 basically stated we could only enter a blanket purchase order for $5,000, I think it was. So any blanket purchase order over that, we technically shouldn't have done. I didn't know this ordinance existed until this past year. It was never talked about in any single audit that I was a part of. And I've been a part of audits since 2016. So auditors have never said anything about it. This is the first time. So it doesn't change the purchasing process for departments. Departments still have to follow the same purchasing process. If it's over $5,000, needs Board of Control approval. If it's this year's $77,250 or more, still needs to come to council. None of that changes. What it basically eliminates is, if I go based upon that ordinance, almost every single I won't say every single contract, but a lot of our contracts, EMS billing, fire department would actually have to enter a PO monthly for the life force services, for the EMS billing. Healthcare for Summit County, we'd have to enter that monthly. Garbage to Kimball, we would have to enter that monthly. So there's several different invoices that we receive on a monthly basis that at a $5,000 limit, we would have to enter monthly, which if a person's off or on vacation or something of that nature comes up, we then aren't getting the PO entered in time. We then have to come back to council, because if it's over $3,000 and the PO date is after the invoice date, we have to come to council, ask for approval to pay that invoice. So it's just one of those things to help us out some. It's not specific to Summit County. I just use that as an example. So, I mean, even at 1.5 million, why it seems like a lot, it still wouldn't cover the full year for Summit County. That would only cover about 3 months worth. So we would still have to, we would have to change, instead of entering the whole year, we will enter it quarterly from now on. But it will help with the Kimball contract. The Kimball contract, I think they enter that 3 months worth, and that will fall within the 1.5. So I tried to incorporate a lot of the POs that we enter as blanket POs, because they're part of contracts, in that threshold. So it's more of a procedural thing on my end in finance, more than anything. Just like I said, it doesn't change any procedural things on departments when it comes to procurement. They still have to follow all the same rules. It's just allowing them to not have to maybe enter a PO every single month.
And do you think, I mean, when it comes to the request from planning, does it kind of go hand in hand with that, or is that just a coincidence?
I think it's coincidence there. I can't speak on behalf of planning of what went on there.
Sure.
So my guess is it's just coincidence.
Okay.
So, any other questions regarding that?
Thank you.
Thank
Do I have a motion to call for this?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have, this was referred from Streets, a letter from Mayor William Judge requesting an appropriation of $20,000 from the unappropriated item of the street operating fund into the operations and maintenance budget of the street operating fund to be used to remove fallen or dangerous trees. Emergency wording and wording requested. Does anybody have any other questions since Mrs. Beck just went over this? Hearing none, do I have a motion to call?
Motion?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead and open this up to miscellaneous for finance and personnel, if there's anything from the committee or the body.
Question.
Yes.
So back to number one with Roetzel. 3333, three of the bills are exactly the same, and they're basically, they run per month. Is that a monthly fee that we're paying as a retainer? Because there's zero input of what the charges are, except for in March, when it's, down to the minute of what they're billing for.
Right.
And Ms. Miller, since you're on 3 of the 4, can you fill me in on that?
Sure. Can I have what you're looking at?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yes, $3,333.
Is that just a reoccurring retainer?
The 33333 are the recurring, okay, so that's those. And so there is no itemized list because that's not technically from Retzel Law Firm, that's from Retzel Consulting.
Okay.
So that's Jason Dotson,
Gotcha.
okay? This is absolutely not, should have not went out, but this is professional services rendered to the planning department by Retzel and Andrus, the law firm.
Gotcha.
So this, I told her never to do that again. It's privileged.
Oh,
So this is a retainer we have every month with,
So two things.
Economic development.
Retzel and Andrus, the law firm, are typically my bills unless someone does something separately like Stacy did for Newell Street.
gotcha.
Retzel Consulting, the 33333, is Retzel Consulting, not Retzel and Andrus, the law firm.
Gotcha.
Two separate corporations, kind of. I don't know if they're separate companies or how they've legally maintained two entities, but they aren't technically the same. So Jason Dotson, under Retzel Consulting, does not render legal advice to the city of Barberton. He performs other services. Whereas Retzel and Andrus are attorneys for the city, either doing negotiations with Jamie for the union contracts, helping with legal matters on Newell Street, or in my case, doing projects for me that I need help with.
Thank you.
thank you, Arlene. Okay. All right, is there any other miscellaneous for finance? Mr. Flaker, do you have anything else? All right, hearing none, do I have a motion to
Yeah,
adjourn?
real quick.
Oh, sorry.
This isn't 100% for finance, but it is because we spend money on cutouts. I just wanted to let everybody know that I did just send a newer version of my cutout report. It was something that Justin and I know you all kind of asked for a little bit more information and kind of a running list. So it is now more of a running list. Give me your feedback. Let me know what you think. It's color coded by ward. The most recent dates, I think it was the second or third of this month, they were out doing repairs. Their repairs are limited by amount of material because they can only fill the truck so full, and depending on the size of the cutout, they can only get so many done with so much asphalt, in a day. And I know that they spent 2 or 3 days last month also repairing cutouts. Again, so as time allows, we also had a company come in and help with some of our water loss. So they're busy chasing and fixing stuff that was found right now too, and that's to try to meet EPA mandates. EPA, we got a notice violation to try to reduce our water loss, which is something that they're trying to tackle right now too, which equates digging some more holes and chasing some water leaks. But they've been real busy with that too, and trying to juggle that with repairing cutouts. So I'm hoping to see this a lot more as the weather really warms up and we get rid of some of this rain. Hopefully we can get out and do some more road repairs.
as this weather warms up.
This is good asphalt weather.
I hope not more than 94.
Mr. Shreve, I got your thing here.
Okay.
I'm guessing there's 125 at least. Is this cross streets and water, or is this still just streets?
Those are, what I sent is just solely from the water department.
Okay.
Okay, so that is going to be water cutouts primarily. So street department does catch basins, typically edge of the road, next to the curb. These are more in the driving lanes. So, I mean, I have not yet incorporated both departments. So I'm going to work with streets on trying to get catch basins added, but that would be their primary digs in the road.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right, with nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
We are adjourned at 6:27.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. That concludes our individual committee meetings for this evening. With no objections, I'd like to roll right into the committee of the whole meeting. Have kind of a longer night. All right. Just a heads up before we get started with the committee of the whole meeting, we do have an executive session that's scheduled for the very, very, very end after the marriage report. There will be no further discussion or business discussed after that executive session. And with that, today is July 7th, 2025. It's Committee of the Whole meeting for Barberton City Council. I call this meeting to order at, my thing's off. What time does that say? 7:30? 6:28 p.m. My eyes are bad. That looks like it says 7. Oh, man. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to jump into citizens addressing council. Now, when I call your name, you'll have 5 minutes. If you step up to that podium over here, the microphone's right there. You're going to state your name, address, and your residence address. And the reason you're speaking today, just note that when you're speaking, I know we do have First Energy here. We'll open that one up for discussions. But council will not be able to address back, right? So you're going to address your concerns, you're going to talk about what you're going to talk about, but you do have 5 minutes. Just know that council will not be able to answer your questions, but you're more than welcome to stick around after council if you wanted to talk to individual council members or anybody in the administration. So we're going to start with Ms. DeLuce. Is that DeLuce? DeLuca. All right. I apologize for that.
I do have a...
If you just plug in that HDMI, I'll get this. Hopefully.
Okay, well, good evening. My name is Sandy DeLuca from Summit County Children's Services, and it is a pleasure of mine to be here this evening. I'd like to give a shout out to Emily Beck. I met her over at CABE, and she invited me to come and speak, or suggested I come and speak, so I'm grateful for that. Our mission at Summit County Children's Services is that we are committed to the safety, permanency, and well-being of all children served, and we do that in partnership with families in the community. And one of the big reasons that I'm here this evening is our agency is in the middle of a foster care crisis, literally a foster care crisis. We have over 840 children from this county in our custody this week, over 840 kids. In comparison, we only have about 135 foster families in this county. So just doing the sheer number, we don't have enough foster families to keep children locally here in this county. So why do we have a need for foster families? Why do we need foster care? Well, children come into custody for a variety of reasons, numerous reasons, and they're very complex family dynamics. Certainly drugs and alcohol, opioid epidemic, mental health issues. If you combine all of those together with poverty, unemployment, it's just a plethora of issues that families are facing, and that is why children are coming into our custody. And speaking back to our mission, is because children are not safe, their well-being is at risk, and there could be issues with permanency for them. So that is why these children are brought to our attention and while they're being brought into our custody. So a few statistics I'd like to share. From 2024, we had 9,119 total calls to our intake line involving the safety and well-being of children. A little over, almost 9,300 children last year received services from our agency. We have an 81% reunification rate because our goal always for every child that enters our custody is to reunify with their birth family. And last year we had 81 adoptions finalized. So 81 children were able to find their forever family and legalize in court. This next slide is something I'd like to point out because we are physically located here tonight in 44203, as you all know. 44203 is a top 10 zip code for our agency in terms of children coming into our custody. In fact, the Barberton-Norton area, this zip code, has consistently been in the top 10. Last year, 166 children from this zip code came into our custody. In comparison, we only have 5 foster families. So right there, the vast majority of those 166 children are being removed from the zip code, their family, extended family, their neighborhoods, their schools, what they know and what's familiar to them, and they're being placed in other zip codes where they do not have those connections. So, and Barberton, Norton area has, like I said, been consistently in the top 10, but I wanted to point that out because we are in a crisis here, and not just here in this zip code, but across the county. So foster families are considered a vital member of our team at Summit County Children's Services because you are caring for the children 24/7. And so what you see, what you observe, what you witness these children doing and how they're thriving and how they're reacting is vital to reporting back to us as well as to maybe the schools or to their counselors or their therapists. So they're a vital member of the team. And they work together in unison with not only our agency staff, but with the birth family as well. Because having that connection and journeying alongside the birth family helps them to work towards reunification. So very, very quickly, in terms of eligibility, who can become a foster parent? We have 2 primary requirements. You have to be age 18 years of age or older, and you must live in Summit County or one of the contiguous counties, and there's 6 of them. So if you live in one of those 7 counties, you can become certified with our agency to become a foster parent. You can be married, single, widowed, divorced, or have a domestic partner. You can be a homeowner or a renter. You can have children already or not. You can be working outside the home, be full or part-time working, full or part-time going to school. You could be retired, an empty nester. It does not matter. There's no income requirement. There's no education requirement. We ask, though, that you be a positive role model for kids and be able to accept them as they are. And once you are a certified foster parent, what does Summit County Children's Services provide? Now, we do realize that being a foster parent is challenging and difficult work. So what we have is we have a foster home coordinator who is kind of like the caseworker for your family. So they are your go-to, your resource, your constant, if you will. Every child that comes into your home will have his or her or their own caseworker, but your foster home coordinator is a constant for you and a resource. We also have ongoing training because once you are certified as a foster parent, you are certified for a 4-year period, and you are required to continue to get ongoing training, about 15 hours per year. So we offer a lot of variety of training opportunities for our foster families. We also have a reimbursement check that is given to foster parents for the care of the child that they provide. It is a daily per diem rate that is given as a reimbursement for the care of the child. So if the child was placed with you in the month of July and they were with you all 31 days, you would receive your reimbursement check in the middle of August for the care that you provided in July. And then, of course, medical care, optical care, dental care, all taken care of with partnerships from local providers in the community. Plus, our agency has a lot of additional funding available to help pay for enrichment activities, extracurricular activities, field trips, if they want to play sports or an instrument and go to camp, what have you. So we have a lot of resources to help pay for those extra things that kids want and need to do. So I know you can't respond, but if you have any questions, please reach out to me. There's information in the pamphlet that was given to you, or if you know of anyone in your community in 44203 who you think would be a good foster parent, please have them contact us. And thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, next up is Mr. Donald, I'm gonna Pickering? All right, yep, just step on up.
Hi, my name's Don Pickering, and I'm here to talk about the rental registration fee of $200 per unit. I think that's totally ridiculous. There's no way a landlord can recoup them losses in a year because of the way the economy is. If you've ever owned rentals, you'll know it's not the easiest thing to collect money out of people, and it needs to go back towards $40 a unit and be done with it. And you're not hurting nobody but the tenant, because the landlord's going to raise the rent, and then he's going to have a harder time fighting to get it out of them. And there's one thing I have known by being a landlord: these people that rent, they have a brain. They have X amount of dollars to spend per month for rent, groceries, transportation, the food they buy out and around, and a little bit of enjoyment. When you start getting in their pocketbook for more rent, they will move. The houses go empty, vandalism hits, and then of course my insurance goes up on it, and that house is insured. So you need to reconsider, put it back at $40 a month and be done with, or $40 a year per unit, and not try to stress a landlord out, because that's his livelihood. Especially as they get on Social Security, they're going to live off of that, or try to, but it doesn't normally happen because they go empty and you get repairs. So I would hope you would consider this and do something different than that, you know, because it's not right to the landlord or the tenant at all. So that's all I have to say about it. Thank you for your time.
The address.
242 5th Street, Barberton.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's
No, you're fine. All right, Miss Rita.
Hi, I am Fatima Rita. I've been a landlord for a long, long time. And I object to charging $200 per unit for rental registration. I mean, I hate to be like a 20-unit apartment building in Barberton. I mean, that's like $4,000 here that you'd have to come up with just for rental registration. I mean, I would like to know what's the advantage to paying this much for the landlords or the tenants. I don't see any advantage. I'd like to know where is the money going to that you're charging that much. And then I also question if it's a house, whether it's a tenant occupied or an owner occupied, why should the tenant be considered different than the owners? I mean, if you want to charge for every house, go ahead, but I still don't think you should. So I question it's a fair housing issue possibly, that you're charging, first of all, and charging $200. If somebody has a lot of units, that costs a lot of money. And, it's hard to come up with all that money. And I really, really want to know what you're doing with $200 per unit here. And, if sometimes the houses go empty, and then you gotta, take care of them and pay the utilities until you get them re-rented. And there's a lot of people out there that, oh, you want that much for that house? And it's like, a lot of rents have gone up, and people's incomes have not gone up that much. And, I mean, we have to pay taxes as landlords for all the rent that we receive and all the expenses. It's very time-consuming, and I hate to add more expense to taking care of our properties. And it's just, I don't see why it has to be that much, and I even question why anybody has to pay for a rental registration. I mean, what does it matter? I mean, it's a house, whether it's occupied by somebody who owns it or somebody who's renting it, it's still a house. And people are living there and hopefully taking care of everything, paying their bills. So I just don't like the idea of charging $200 for rental registration. It just doesn't seem fair, it doesn't seem right. And I would like to discuss this afterwards with any council members here and anybody else. That needs to be changed, and then it should not be, if you don't pay it, you get penalized for it. That's not right either. So I just don't like the idea, and I think you're going to hurt the rental industry, because people aren't going to want to buy rental properties when they have to pay all these extra expenses, and they might go to another city, or just, I think I have seen quite a few landlords, not just Akron or Barberton, but other places, like, I don't want to be a landlord anymore, because it's just, you're charging me all kinds of stuff here. You're making it so much more difficult to be a landlord, and we're all trying very hard to maintain a good property, make the tenants happy, keep things maintained in the house, and do good. But you're making it harder. And I mean, it's $200 per unit. That's a lot. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rita. Ms. Rita, do you have an address?
682 North Revere Road, Akron, Ohio.
Thank you. All right. I believe that is all the citizens in that one presentation. Next up, I'm going to ask, we have some representatives from First Energy that would like to come here and give a presentation, and we will, this is one that we will allow some interaction with.
It's not coming.
It should be good.
Oh, good. It's not coming up on you. Huh? Might be this thing.
I'm watching. The beginning.
I'll have.
Hooked up to the internet?
Yeah. I'll have mine take a look at it later.
What? The tech reader.
This to fix it.
Yep,
Mr.
you're up.
President.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I was just waiting for you. Mr. President, Council, thank you for having us this evening. My name is Amy Hopkins. I am the Local Engagement Specialist for the City of Barberton with First Energy. I am your liaison between the city. I work with the city on their concerns, and I work on that on behalf of First Energy. So tonight, I'd like to introduce Manager of Engineering, Dan Knupp, and he is going to address your concerns as well as if, I know you can't answer questions or ask questions, so we'll address the concerns and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. My name's Dan Knupp. Like Amy said, I'm the manager of reliability and asset management for engineering services within First Energy. So what does that mean? Reliability is ensuring quality service to all of our currently connected customers. So I cover all 3 operating companies within the state of Ohio, meaning Ohio Edison, Cleveland Electric Illuminating Company, and Toledo Edison. The other half of my role is managing all of our regulatory reporting requirements through the Ohio Administrative Code. So that would be the asset management side of my role. So like Amy said, I wanted to go through some details of some of the activity that the city of Barberton has seen recently and be able to address any questions or concerns that come up. Before I get into some of the details of the formal presentation, I did want to mention, that, the employees that work throughout the company also live in the communities they serve. So, we have 4 linemen in the Akron Service Center that live in the Barberton city limits, multiple support personnel from within the line shop, and then me personally, my mom and younger sister both live within Barberton. So I'm from the Youngstown area, but my mom and my younger sister both live in the the Barberton city limits, and we're impacted by the outages that we're going to talk about this evening. So it's not just a responsibility as employees for us. This is personal for us as well. So I'm going to have 2 types of presentations here, right? The schedule for us to come in this evening was regarding some of the activity with one of our circuits, through the April-May timeframe, even into June. So the first part of the presentation is really going to be discussing those outages and the activity going on there before we move into the heat of the week of the 22nd. So, but before we get into that, I want to talk through, how we are, committed to delivering that reliable service throughout all of our service territories, regardless of community, city, township. Our customers are equal across the board. We understand, storms can be very disruptive. This has been a rather elevated year for storm activity, particularly in the Akron municipal area as a whole. And then, obviously, we can't prevent every outage, but we do make the right investments. And I'll get into some of those investments here in a little bit to help improve the reliability and strengthen the grid as a whole. So, as I mentioned, talking through the outages and the elevated activity through April, May timeframe, that was really in the Portage Lakes area of the city. I know that there's been a lot of discussions about an osprey nest and it, impacting our facilities, and that is a very creative, very smart bird that knows exactly where to build its nest, and sometimes it interacts with our system. So we do have creative solutions for that, but we do have to follow the federal rules and regulations around that species in the way that it's protected. So specifically regarding the osprey nest, there was one that caused an outage. There's 4 other nests in the Barberton area that are also on our facilities. The company as a whole has been working with our environmental group to get the right permits and make sure that we are complying with all of the rules and regulations. So August 8th is the first day that we can, that permit is open. So we would be starting to schedule and work those nest mitigations after August 8th. So we do have certain facilities covered up. You'll see some orange rubber products on some of our lines, where those nests are at, trying to mitigate any type of short circuit or fault type event that would cause an outage. So we do know where the nests are. We recognize that they are an issue that we need to manage, and we do have to wait for the right time when the permits are open. Severe weather, I've already touched on this. In the Akron area as a whole, or even Ohio Edison as a whole, March 16th was a rather big event. May 16th all the way through the 17th was again a very notable event. Some of the activity that we want to talk about tonight, through that Portage Lakes area, and then as well as June 18th was another date that was much more recent. And then the last one's off right-of-way trees. The activity for the Portage Lakes area has been primarily off right-of-way trees. I do have a graphic to help show everyone exactly what an on right-of-way tree versus an off right-of-way tree is. Understand that we do have certified arborists that we employ in our forestry group to help identify the species of the tree and also the factors that could lead into a disruption in the electric system. So for the on right-of-way trees where we have the rights to trim, it's very much within the rights to trim. We can trim anything that's within that 15-foot corridor. Anything that's outside of that, it has to be obviously diseased, dying, some type of soil disruption, uprooting. Any of the obviously healthy trees are not going to be a point of discussion for us because they're outside of our trimming rights and the tree is healthy. So, we are very limited on our trees that are outside of our trimming corridor. So the graphic I was mentioning is here. So the blue box that we're talking about here would be considered our on right-of-way corridor. That's a 15-foot from the center line of the pole line. So the 15-foot extends in both directions as well as above the pole line itself. Anything outside of that 15-foot rights is outside of our trimming corridor and would be considered outside of our right-of-way. We have no rights to trim that. If the tree is compromised in any way, we will request permission to trim that tree. And we don't typically get a lot of refusals once our certified arborists identify and talk through the landowner. The activity this year has been a lot of substantially healthy trees that have impacted our system as a whole from outside of the trimming corridor. So I want to make sure that I address that before we get into the activity of the heat wave. So that was a lot of the activity that was through the Portage Lakes area, the activity in the April, May, and early June timeframe. That Portage Lake circuit wasn't necessarily too affected by the activity during the heat wave, which is why I wanted to make sure I separated the two discussion points.
I'm sorry, you're talking about Portage Lakes I'm not sure where exactly each neighborhood's electric comes from. Is a bulk of Barberton come from Portage Lakes or? So
it's a rather complicated network, right, of circuits. So the Barberton city limits is served from roughly about 4 different substations, and I want to say close to 8 different circuits. So those substations, some of them originate from inside of the Barberton city limits. Some of them originate from outside the Barberton city limits and navigate in. The reason why we do that is to provide redundancy to the area, as well as be able to do maintenance on our system by moving load from one circuit to another. So there is multiple service points that provide service within the city limits of Barberton. So this graphic gets into a little bit of what we were just talking about. So I want to walk through the activity during the heat wave on June 23rd and what really happened there. So the center of the slide here, the center of this graphic, is the Barberton transmission substation. So that substation is in the Barberton footprint, which is why we call it Barberton substation. That transmission substation feeds 7 Ohio Edison distribution substations, meaning that we have residential and industrial and commercial customers connected to those substations throughout the territory, not just within Barberton city limits, but also the surrounding communities outside of the Barberton city limits. So in total, it's approximately 21,000 customers that we serve from that Barberton transmission substation. If you look at the blue text to the right side of that graphic, you'll see that it says individual customers. A lot of those are larger industrial customers that are served directly off the 23,000 volt circuits that are fed from the Barberton transmission substation. So in addition to Ohio Edison-owned distribution substations, there's also individual industrial customers that are connected directly to those transmission circuits. So like I said, those in total, between the distribution substations and the individual customers, are roughly about just over 21,000 customers in total. When we had the outage on June 23rd, both transformers that feed the 23,000 volt system actually tripped offline and caused the outage to all of the customers that are shown on this graphic. What resulted from that was us as a company being able to do staged restoration. So we were able to pick up some of our substations within 42 minutes off of surrounding and redundant feeders. Other customers were not able to have that ability to be picked up because of the heat, the load, and just the configuration of the system. The 3-hour time frame, or just over 3-hour time frame for the majority of the customers, what were we doing during that time frame? The substation personnel were inside of the Barberton transmission substation testing the transformers, ensuring that they were not damaged in that event and not compromised during that event, so that we could turn them back on. The line department was also making repairs out on the line in multiple locations to ensure that we were able to serve those customers reliably once the transformers were ready to be turned back on. So it was a long duration outage because of the testing of the transformers and the multiple locations that had to be repaired on the line. I recognize that during that heat, that was a very, like I said before, disruptive event. We worked very quickly as possible and as safely as possible to ensure that when we turned everybody back on, there wouldn't be some other event that caused a longer duration outage and continued to disrupt that service. I want to talk through, now that you have some of the understanding around what happened during that event, what are we doing in the city of Barberton and the surrounding areas? It's not just focused in the city of Barberton. Our investments go throughout the operating company of Ohio Edison. And like I said, we serve all of our customers equally. So the additional inspections, that's the first one. Since that heat wave on June 23rd, we've been utilizing new technology through drones, where we're able to use a visual inspection as well as a thermal camera. It's a thermography scan of our system, the 23,000 volt system, where we can both visually inspect as well as use thermal scans to see any elevated hot spots or heating of the connections, the switches. That gives us an indication that maybe that connection is going bad. There's an issue there where we can proactively replace that connection prior to a failure point. So those additional inspections have been going on since the week following, I can't recall the date, it's I think the 27th of June, and continue even today. Not during the rain, of course, we can't fly the drones during the rain, but weather permitting, we are continuing those inspections. Identifying opportunities, you've probably heard a lot about the Energize 365 investments that we're making throughout First Energy's entire footprint, all 5 states. Particularly in Ohio, there's a rather large project that's going to be a multi-year project on the 69,000 volt system. What we're doing there is rebuilding that line that travels through Barberton city limits, mostly near the southwestern area, Eastern Road, down in that area of the southwestern corner, that traverses through the Barberton city limits. On the same pole line is 2 23,000 volt circuits that are on the same pole line. Those will be rebuilt at the same time frame that project does have repairs made. So the 69,000 volt system, that construction will start in 27 in the Barberton city limits. The project is ongoing right now, particularly within the Barberton city limits. It'll be in the 27 time frame. A little bit sooner would be the Barberton transmission substation that I showed on a previous graphic that's getting a rather large upgrade within that system from the transmission system itself. So there's going to be quite a bit of investment in 2026, particularly in the Barberton substation, that will help with additional redundancy throughout the footprint. Moving on to tree trimming. We are in the middle of a tree trim cycle. We do trim trees on a 4-year cycle throughout the footprint. We are in the middle of that cycle right now. However, during large weather events like June 18th, we do have our forestry group that goes out and does additional inspections, looking for tree branches that maybe broke off but didn't fall out that could impact our system. It's a means of hot spotting, what we call it, to make sure that we can either trim additional trees that were impacted by the weather event, look for priority trees that maybe have uprooted roots, disrupted soil that were impacted by wind that could impact our system, and that is ongoing as we're talking here today. Last point here is smart meter installations. This is part of our grid modernization rider, the second installation of our smart meter infrastructure. So this will deploy smart meters out to the remaining customers throughout our footprint in Ohio. The Barberton area is scheduled to start that deployment in the fourth quarter of this year. Smart meters have quite a bit of ability to help individual homeowners understand how you're using your electric, and also our website offers individuals a better understanding of how you're using that, where you can better save, and provide suggestions to the homeowners on how to better save, overall with your usage within the home. The smart meter technology, one more added layer there is that, while the smart meters can't give us an alarm or any type of notification that the home is out or any part of our circuit is out, it can help us with restoration. As we're doing stage restoration throughout the footprint, we can use the smart meters and actually ping those smart meters through our IT infrastructure to understand whether or not that meter is on, whether it has high voltage, low voltage, or anything like that. So there is an active part of that smart meter deployment that helps us with storm restoration and overall power quality. The last slide for me here, before we get into any type of questions, is just summarizing everything that we talked about this evening. So we're committed to delivering positive customer experience, and I recognize that the elevated activity in the past months, weeks, makes that a little bit difficult, right? But we are committed, and we are making permanent repairs, and we have made permanent repairs to any of the issues that have come up throughout our footprint. Like I said, the additional inspections are helping us be a little bit more proactive in ensuring that we don't have a long duration outage on that equipment. Again, we can't prevent every outage, but we do everything within our power to reduce the duration and overall impact, whether that's through stage restoration or getting resources there as quickly as possible. And lastly, we're pursuing every opportunity we can within the city limits and adjacent city limits to ensure that the service we're providing to Barberton, surrounding communities, and Akron as a whole, all of our Ohio Edison customers, is meeting our expectations.
Go ahead.
Yes.
First off, thank you for coming. Second, Councilor Griffin and I, we live on the south side of town, and I see what you're doing, I see what you're trying to do, but how in the month of May and June, just on the south side alone, we had over 12 outages. I've lived there 17 years, he's lived there his whole life. In the 17 years I've lived there, I haven't had 12 outages combined, let alone in 2 months. I understand, birds, trees, heat. Birds have existed. Trees have existed. We've had hot summers. We've never had these kind of problems. What is causing and how are we going to address the constant failure of those 2 months? Because like I said, you can tell me birds, and I get that they'll do bad things, but they've always existed. Trees, they've been growing for quite a few years. Heat, we've had summers where that heat that we've had 2 straight weeks of it where it's 95 at 3 in the morning. and it didn't go out like this. Here in Barberton, we have our own water plant. Electric is a utility. Water is a utility. If we went out that many times at our water plant, these citizens would have our heads on stakes outside. The government tells us through unfunded mandates, things that we have to do to improve our plant, that we have to come up for the money somehow, some way to do these things. First Energy collects a hell of a lot of fees, and I don't think we're seeing those kind of results. Again, why should one utility company get a pass when another utility company, they would bring guillotines out to the street if they could, if we had these kind of problems with our water? What happened in those 2 months? And we all everybody here gets when there was bad storms and windstorms. We get it. We understand that. We had a tree down the street from us, probably the size of this room, ripped right out of the ground. We understand that kind of stuff happens. But 2 weeks later, we had 3 days clear as a bell. Nice breezy day. Lights out for hours on end. Councilor Easterling on the east side, his side has been just decimated for those 2 months. I mean, how many times has it gone over there?
And it's even been, for years, just a little bit of wind, a little bit of water, at least flickers, we've always lost power. And I'm on the last pole from a different circuit. I'm guessing I share your circuit because, I feel the pain with your emails.
But last week we had citizens, or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we had citizens come in, signing papers, telling us the hardships they suffered from it. They came in, they spoke, they were polite, they were calm, they understood that the city's not at fault here. We had that meeting at the YMCA because this building had a power outage. How ironic was that? I just saw, I think in the news, what was it? Lakewood, there's going to be a $3 million investment. Is that kind of thing coming to Barberton with things that we've had happen here? So what kind of, our substation, you said you're upgrading that. How long has it needed that upgrade? How long has money been collected off fees that hasn't been invested in our city? And I know I sound angry, and I am, because I like making the people in my city happy. I'm at large here. I'm not a ward guy. But I'll tell you this, when I have citizens beating down my neck about the same issue, by God, I'm coming to address that issue with the same vitriol that I have to deal with on a daily basis. So I am angry, yes, and I apologize that I'm sounding that way to you, but this is the tone I hear daily. Those are my questions. Thank you.
So you're allowed to be angry. I don't get to come to these meetings because everything's going right. So I'm happy to address those questions, right? So you started with the south side. Again, we're talking about within the Barberton city limits, 4 substations, 8 circuits. Close to that, there's 7 substations total that serve the surrounding areas, right? So the south side, I want to say, is the Johnson Corners substation. No.
That's the far west side.
That's
okay.
That's my side.
The south side is
Your
more
side.
619
Yours.
going towards the Portage Lakes area.
Okay, so some of the activity that happened there that I talked through in the beginning, right, was we were doing maintenance on one of our circuits, and there was 2 substations that were with 2 circuits that were tied together. Some of the activity there was related to us being able to complete our maintenance. So there was an elevated level of activity that was to more customers than usual because we had the 2 circuits tied together. That's something that we do on a regular basis. Manage our system. Connect circuits together, take circuits apart, put them back in normal configuration. So a lot of the activity that you're talking about, was due to, it's not just one osprey nest, right? I mean, this outage was, but the protected species of ospreys, in my opinion, seeing the number of nests on the electrical infrastructure has increased over my career, which has been 20 years with the power company. So it used to be particularly in western PA. Now it's in definitely in areas around Alliance, here in Barberton. So it's definitely a lot more activity, particularly to ospreys, than I've seen even since the beginning of my career. And yes, I mean, tree activity, I think we heard the mayor say earlier about the number of trees within, the city limits. Trees are impacting our lines, and we, like I went through, very limited on our rights to trim. So we do approach it proactively, but we have been impacted specifically through the storm weather, or the strong weather, through storms, as well as, just blue sky activity with trees this year. It's been the primary, or the leading cause of outages on those circuits as a whole this year has been off right-of-way trees. Hold on, I'm sorry. There's Barberton substation. Yes, one more question. I had to write them all down.
It's okay.
So the investment in Barberton substation is just because, age doesn't define reliability. I think we can all say, right, that, things made today aren't necessarily as good as they once were, right? So we do maintenance our system. We have a Ohio Administrative Code that we have to file a regulatory report annually. Substations are required to be inspected every month. That inspection cannot go any more than 40 days from one inspection to the next. That is all through the Ohio Administrative Code, where my team has to report that, and we're audited on that annually. So we do have an active participation with the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio annually on those inspections and on our inspection and maintenance practices. So particularly to that investment, we're making that investment and accelerating that investment to help strengthen our grid as a whole and provide more reliable service throughout the service territory, including the city of Barberton. So I wouldn't necessarily say how long has it been. I'd say that we're successful in accelerating it and getting it done this year into next year. And again, completing that work in 27. So I hope I've answered all of those questions.
Thank you.
So go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just curious, if you have planned maintenance where there's going to be a planned power outage, why on earth are you doing it on days where it's 100 degrees outside?
So planned power outages are typically not planned during 100-degree days. If I said that or provided that response to the committee, I'm sorry. Planned outages are typically done with a notification out to the residents. Where we do provide 3 days ahead of time if we're going to have an outage with an estimated length of what that outage will be, and if there's a rain day, what the rescheduled date will be if that can't happen. So, but typically we wouldn't plan that on a 100-degree day, and if we
Okay,
did,
so-
we would reschedule it.
So the most recent, you said they were doing maintenance, and that what caused the outage?
So yeah, now I understand the confusion. So the June 23rd outage was completely separate from the south side, circuits that I was talking about. The June 23rd outage was a Barberton substation that didn't have planned maintenance. That was an issue that came up on the circuit itself that caused the two transformers that serve the 23,000 volt system out of that substation to de-energize or come offline, trip offline, and where we had to do the testing to put them back online.
I was just curious because I've had a couple residents, when they reported their outages, they were told it was planned maintenance. So I don't know if that was just an error on your guys' end, maybe an automated system.
That would have been an error because I can't speak specifically to the details that you're referencing, but we didn't have any planned maintenance in that substation at that time.
Okay.
You had your hand up first.
So when you were talking about the drones, the visual inspections and the thermal scans, how many did you do? Did you do them here? Is that what you're saying? You're doing them here? And then did you find anything in these thermal scans that you needed to do maintenance on?
Yeah, so the 23,000 volt system serves a very large area of the community. So we go north into West Akron, we come into the west side of Barberton, and as well as inside Barberton city limits. So we have found a couple locations that are, I want to say 5 locations right now, that are being prioritized based on the level of heat above ambient temperature. So the hotter the connection or the hotter the spot, the higher priority it gets.
I have a second question too.
Yes.
We talked a lot about trees. We talked about a lot about trees for a long time, and even other aspects of this. You know, you said you just finished, actually, in one they said, I think, one email, I think from Amy, I think you said you finished last year. Earlier, we said you finished this year, and now during, when you were talking, you were saying it's ongoing. I have turned in tons of trees in power lines over the past couple of weeks. So if that initiative is finished in Barberton, I would suggest you come back, because I had more today, that actually one came today, and I chuckled to myself, like, oh Lord, I got another one here. Now, I did not drive by to see exactly what this person was talking about, if it needed done or not, but I think you might want to come back. It's more of a statement than a question, I guess.
Sure, and for clarification, right, we do trim our circuits by substation and circuit name, right? We don't trim by municipality or city. You know, so some circuits are trimmed, you know, on one calendar year, and then we trim other circuits on a different calendar year. So depending on the substation and circuit that the customer lives on, those cycles can vary.
Right.
So just,
I mean, if you're not coming back till 2029, that's too long.
so like I said, that we were doing inspections and hotspotting following the storm event of 6/18. So while we're in the middle of you know, our trim cycles within the Barberton city limits, we are still doing ongoing inspections.
Thank you.
And the process that you mentioned is exactly the process, where if there is a concern of a particular tree uprooting, any type of disease, maybe a fracture within the tree that a customer has a concern of, the process is to call our call center, put in a ticket, and that certified arborist will be dispatched over the coming days to review that tree. The customer may not see them. They should be leaving a door hanger on the door to let the customer know, we were here, this is what we found.
Actually, can I ask you one last thing? Of the ones that I have turned in, I don't think I've ever gotten like an update on that, because I just go through the portal.
Sure.
Is there a way
So
that I can?
if you're turning it into the customer, we would be reporting the findings to the customer themselves.
So I think it comes through as myself, actually my husband, because the electricity's through my husband, but I put the address of where I'm talking about, and I do say like, oh, you can call me in the morning or whatever, but I don't think I've ever gotten a phone call. So honestly, I don't know whatever has happened to these unless I drive by like, oh, yeah, they did that.
I'll let Amy jump in here if there's anything that I'm saying differently than what she's aware of.
So you could, this is where I come in, this is where you have me, you could send me the notification number and I can follow back up with you. I can send you an email and say, this is what the arborist found. This is what has happened.
Thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir, you talked about the 15-foot right-of-way, like the substation I'm talking about is on 31st Street, which is probably the Johnson Corners one that you're talking about. Is that 15 feet from the fence line of that?
So the 15-foot right-of-way I talked about was specifically from our pole lines.
Okay.
You know, our substations are, there's situations where we could have an easement on a property, but primarily we own the property. You know, so Ohio Edison is the landowner of the property, and our fences were built in compliance with the construction standards at the time. So I guess the question you have following that.
Well, if you go to 31st Street and look at that substation, it's a smaller substation, not like the one on West Hopkins here. There's trees all the way around it, you know, except for the front. Where are you trimming those at? Because I've seen some trees hanging into that substation.
Sure. And so, I mean, we do take care of vegetation within the substation. We can't obviously let anything grow up within our substation. But again, if there's no hazard or danger of the tree falling into our equipment, you know, and again, the certified arborists look at, you know, even the weighting of the tree. Which side is it? Could it fall if it breaks? Things like that. So there is a number of factors that go into the inspection of our substations, including the vegetation, both within and surrounding it.
Okay, and I have one more question.
Sure.
Is some of this investment that you guys are talking about regarding First Energy trying to get involved in fiber? Because I'll be honest with you, I've talked with a lot of guys that I've seen out on the west side measuring poles, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? Oh, well, First Energy's looking at getting involved in fiber.
So we do have our own fiber network for some of our protection schemes and things like that, but we're not in the fiber utility as far as serving customers. So we do have a lot of joint use that comes on our poles, and we're required to maintain NESC standards on those poles, both at the pole and mid-span. That anytime that there's a new request for a new fiber line from a different company or even a current company that's upgrading, we are required to meet today's standards. So if the conductors met the standards at the time, any changes or upgrades are required to meet today's standards. So that may require additional work to be done on our poles, where we elevate the height of the equipment, install taller poles, things like that for those companies, not for us.
Okay, that's not what I was told. I was told First Energy was looking at getting into the fiber business.
I can't speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions for me?
I got one more, sir.
Sure.
You were telling me about the arborist has to come out and look at the limb, so if we have a tree limb that's over a power line or whatever, and he determines that when it falls, it's not going to hit the property, the wiring, okay? So that would be okay, correct? But if that falls in the street or in the right of way of the street, you would just let it fall, right? In other words, we wouldn't cut it down, or you would notify somebody else. I'm just saying, if it's not going to hit the wires, but it's going to fall on the right of way, or sidewalk, or somebody else, it would be okay. That's what you're telling me.
So if I understand your question correctly, if the tree falls into the road and it doesn't impact the
That's what I'm saying.
the electric utility, whose responsibility is it? Is that the question?
Right.
So if there's no impact to the electrical infrastructure, Ohio Edison would not clean up that tree.
Okay. Would you notify somebody that would do it, or you just leave it alone?
So if it's in the road,
I mean, before it falls, if you see a big tree, maybe it's gonna fall, hit the road or something, but it's not gonna hit our line, so, that's okay, you just keep going, don't report it.
we only have the rights within the electrical infrastructure to be able to give the determination whether or not it's going to impact our system or not. So if a customer calls in or a concerned citizen, we would provide that response, like Amy said, back to through the means that we have with the city. But if it wouldn't impact the electrical infrastructure, that would be the end of our responsibility. Go ahead.
Thank you. To Councilor Griffin's point, if your arborist comes out and sees this, and the tree is in not the best shape, and the arborist says this is a bad tree, but it's not going to affect the power line, is our administration being notified that, hey, this isn't going to hit our lines, but this tree is BS and it's going to fall and it's going to do damage somewhere else? Does the arborist have that responsibility to report that to the city as kind of a heads up, like, hey, it's not going to affect us, but I did inspect it and it is a junk tree and it's got potential to be dangerous? Are we being, the mayor just requested and we passed out of committee an extra $20,000 for junk trees. If he was getting notified, maybe we could help step up our game a little too. Councilor Thompson and Director Miller, we're looking at putting together tree ordinances so we can help do that.
I'll let Amy speak to that in the process.
So when the city contacts me and says, hey, we have a concerned resident that calls in that they think that there's a tree on the line, the electrical line, I send our arborist out to put eyes on it. They call me back and they let me know yes or no, this is on the cable line, or this is not affecting our electrical line at all. Then I in return report that back to the mayor's office.
Thank you.
My little off subject, but broken telephone poles from like some of these repairs, car accidents, things of that nature. Doesn't really seem to be a set of guidelines to get things cleaned up. Can you just kind of give us your guys' rules, regs, whatever it is for, getting the stuff out of the right of way that's been transferred or, things of that nature?
Sure, this kind of overlaps with one of the other questions I was talking about, ownership within our poles. Majority of the poles are owned by Ohio Edison, First Energy, but they're not all of the poles. Some of the poles are owned by the telephone company, where we have joint use on the top of the pole. The hierarchy of on the pole does start with the highest voltage at the top and works its way down through that hierarchy, whether it's old phone lines or fiber and whatnot. So if there's a car accident that takes out a pole, and for ease of this conversation, it's an Ohio Edison owned pole. We are notified of that outage. We do respond or dispatch crews out to that pole. We will get the pole, the new pole set, and get our equipment transferred. We will remove the top of the pole that is ours that we own, but there's other companies that have to move or transfer their facilities from the old pole to the new pole, and that's where the delay is. A lot of the fiber companies, telephone companies are using contractor resources or scheduling on their own transfers to happen, and that can sometimes take a couple years to have those transfers completed through the other companies. Where we have ours transferred within that night to restore the outage, we do have to wait for the other companies to complete their transfers before we can get the poles removed.
Do you know, or do you deal with any cities, counties, townships that have ordinances that give you set dates to move that stuff?
That's beyond my level of expertise.
Okay.
Just a follow-up to Mr. Easterling, is anybody notifying these other companies that have, like your cable or phone? I mean, not too many people have phones anymore, landlines. Some people don't even know what landlines are, but
the infrastructure's still out there. Yes,
yeah.
But yes, there's a statewide system called SPANS that all of the companies use to notify each other that the facilities need to be transferred. So that there is a system that all companies use for that.
Thank you.
Last question here.
Sorry, one more, and a bit off topic, and something I almost forgot to bring up. In addition to trees and electricity being outage to our customers, our people, streetlights. We have had so many streetlights out. At times, our entire bridge on one side, which actually kind of adds to the frustration when there's outages and you're saying, you know what, the viaduct has been whole south side of the viaduct out. It was one of the first things that I did as a council person. There was a whole side of the thing out, and then over on State Street, that whole side was out. Which kind of adds to things like there is a problem here. If we have whole bridges out, that comes to another thing like, what's going on here? I know our mayor goes around and ties pink string around things, I see them, there's tons of them. So there's a problem there too.
So I'm going to phone a friend here because I know Amy's got the process down pat.
I can speak to the State Street Bridge. We actually had some vandalism where we've had people going and stealing the wire. And that's been a few times that's happened. So that's the State Street. I just wanted to. Yeah, it's scary, honestly.
We're live, don't give them ideas.
Yeah, it's scary.
But that's just like another thing that's also a safety issue. That's also a kind of a pride issue in the city that, I feel like we chase a lot, all of us, I think, chase a lot of streetlights.
Sure.
Well, okay. I was going to say, if you want to talk, Dallas. So it was Mr. Knupp.
It is,
correct?
yeah.
So I'm Todd Shrave, Director of Public Service, City of Barberton. So I was going to touch on streetlights, so thank you, Councilwoman Beck, because I don't know what the exact percentage is, but I know that it's more than 25% of our lights don't work, would be my guess. My street department has been out. They also tag. We've got third shift. It's amazing how many lights are either flickering, non-functioning, or just plain out missing conductor because of vandalism, which, there's got to be a better way to secure that. But I also wanted to touch on because I hear transmission, transmission, transmission. We also have a distribution system inside the city of Barberton. When I had pavement meetings on 37th Street, I heard if it's a stiff breeze, the power goes out. That was 2 years ago. Mr. Easterling talked about a little bit of drizzle and it goes out on the east side. I had an excavator in our water department caught a communication line and pulled a pole over on Frank Avenue on the south end of town, where we're all talking about, several outages. In all these areas, I see a lot of single conductor copper line, which I know is the way that it used to always be done. I know there's better ways now. I'm concerned with, when I see single conductor copper line, I'm concerned with the transformer sizes. Are they really up to today's standards? When's the last time those were looked at? Is there any plans of investing in our distribution system and not just the transmission system?
So that's a great question. I did talk through a lot of the investment, that we are doing. Gridmod 1 was a very much a very large investment into the distribution system, where we spent quite a bit on SCADA control and indication on devices, as well as oversight within the distribution system. So the group you talked about planning. There's an entire group within engineering called Distribution Planning and Protection. Their entire role is to understand the distribution system as a whole. We're talking about the 50,000-foot view, where they look at the areas as a whole over a 5-year period. So it's 5, 10, 15 years is what they're looking at. They're looking at projected load growth year over year, and they're working to predict any type of system investment that needs to be made because of loading or capacity. So the answer is no, we don't have any capacity issues within the area because we look at that year over year, like I said. So it's a great question. We have an entire department committed to ensuring that our distribution system is ready for the next Amazon that comes in, or the next development that needs to go in, and ensuring that we do have a system set up to be able to accommodate that connection.
Well, but with that though also, and I know you said age doesn't always determine reliability, but I feel like that it does when it comes to 100-year-old conductor, that you can drive down the street and see 6 splices on one span. It makes me really wonder, when are you going to come in and upgrade those conductors and increase some of the reliability to our residents? Because if a breeze and a little bit of drizzle, or a little bit of breeze knocks a pole over because of rot, and I also know that you guys are out, you test poles, you're checking the poles, but I feel like there is a lack of interest in updating outdated conductor. So I don't know. I feel like that adds reliability to the system.
So that's a fair question and a reasonable perception. My team, the reliability group, our whole group is looking at patterns that are developing of outages that are happening time and time again, right? So pockets of customers that could be having or are having outages that have a discernible pattern that's developing. So that's where my team really thrives. That's their wheelhouse, to be able to work with those customers, invest in those areas to help mitigate that pattern that's developing, to again get that to slow down or stop that pattern from going any further. So we are looking at pockets of areas that maybe the line has failed numerous times, and the core of that conductor is rotted, where we do need to replace it. So just because we see copper wire, it's still not necessarily beyond its life expectancy, and still operating as it should and as expected.
But so Councilman Heidick spoke on how many outages?
At least a dozen on the south side, at least.
So I guess my question there is, you spoke as transmission outages on 4 or 5 outages. He's saying a dozen. So out of those 5, 7 more occurred from what? My guess would be, failed conductor, transformer overheating because it was, aged, undersized, something. I mean, that's just the layman looking at what happened, because it clearly wasn't a transmission thing. So it had to be inside the distribution system. And again, when I hear residents saying, every time it rains, my power goes out, that is a reliability thing, that is a distribution thing, because it's not a widespread outage. It may affect 50 people. I don't want that to happen. I don't want those 50 people to have to experience 12 outages. I understand that the entire city was only out 4 times, but I've got 50 people that were out 12. So that's where I want the reliability. I understand the transmission has to be there in order for the residential distribution system to work, but I also don't want them to have to go through all of these outages, even if they're only for 10, 15 minutes. That's still an inconvenience, and it's something that could be prevented. I'm sure it's something that could be prevented.
I feel remiss if I didn't provide a clarification here. So I am a distribution reliability engineer. So my whole conversation today was regarding the distribution system throughout the city of Barberton and the surrounding communities within the Akron area. So while I did mention the Barberton transmission system, my goal there was to understand and provide the impact to the distribution substations that are connected to that system. So all of my discussion points tonight and everything that I've brought up has been particularly about the distribution system. So my team looks at the distribution system as a whole and the reliability of those pockets of customers that you're talking about.
Okay, well, I mean, me personally, I would prefer, and I think everybody shares my sentiment, maybe a little closer look at the system that's in Barberton.
I appreciate that feedback.
So,
Yeah.
thank you.
So last question here.
Uh-oh.
All right, Dallas Moore, and I apologize. I didn't realize that you guys were coming tonight. My detailed questions are at home. So first off, I want to council, I'm kind of disappointed you didn't do the rules meeting tonight because we've lost about a week of our lives this year. They could have lost another 2 hours of theirs on you guys voting, I think. So I'm upset you guys didn't keep them because there are certain citizens here specifically for that, and they're wasting more time. Anyway, moving on. Being proactive about things. I drive down Eastern Road every day. There are trees covering lines. You're not being proactive. Second off, if the birds are coming from Western Pennsylvania, what are your friends in Western Pennsylvania doing to keep power on with their bird issue? That's my question for that.
So can I address that?
Sure.
I didn't say that the birds were coming from Western Pennsylvania.
You said they've been migrating from Western PA.
No, I said
over the last year.
Early in my career, that was the primary hotspot for ospreys. What I was saying was that the protection of that bird is obvious in the expansion of their like migratory patterns. So I wasn't mentioning specifically that they're migrating from Western Pennsylvania.
Okay. Well, okay. I believe you mentioned Western Pennsylvania.
I did.
Maybe reach out to your friends in Western Pennsylvania, see how they keep the power on from the birds. Next is, when did these enhancement initiatives come about? Was it because of these events over the last three large outages, or was this a proactive issue beforehand?
So Energize 365, I want to say, kicked off in 2023. If anybody can correct me there, but it's been a program that we've had running for some time.
The Barberton enhancements.
So the project for Barberton specifically started construction in 2020, late 2024, early 2025. So the planning for that project has been ongoing for many years before that.
For both of them?
Yes.
Substation as well?
Yes.
Okay. So I would like to know what specifically, I'm kind of in the South New Haven? Southwest.
Yeah.
We're kind of outside in a weird area, kind of super rural. Our power goes out probably more than I think anyone else's. Speaking of the rain, it poured for 5 minutes at 4:30. Power went out. It flickered, honestly, for 5 seconds, but the power went out from the frickin' rain.
So
where's the reliability?
I would say specifically, and this is, listen, I know this is going to be hard to believe. That's the distribution system operating as designed. So
to flicker because of the rain?
yes, and here's why.
So to stop.
Here's why. The 70 to 75% of the incidents that occur on the distribution system are temporary in nature. So we're talking birds, squirrels, tree branches that fall from high above and pass through, cause a fault. 70 to 75% of the outages or the events on the distribution system are temporary in nature. We do design our system to accommodate those. So we have devices on the system. It's called either the circuit breaker that operates just like a circuit breaker in your house with a little bit smarter, it's a brain installed, where it accounts for that fault, it opens, it allows time to pass, and it closes back in. By that time, that fault has cleared and service is restored. So that time frame, depending on the circuit, could be 3 seconds, 5 seconds, but there is multiple times that we allow that to happen, understanding that fault or that problem that's on the system would need time to clear. So we typically have 2 momentary interruptions before we go to a permanent lockout where you're out and we're required to send linemen to that area to understand what's going on. But that is the distribution system operating as designed.
So water is causing the power to flicker.
So again,
it is designed because there's water on the power station for it to go out.
So there was an event that happened on the system. It's not water specifically. It would be some other means that caused that short circuit fault to interact with one of our devices to have them operate, let them sit out for the number of seconds that they are designed to do, and then turn back on to restore service to the circuit.
Okay. Well, I would like to say, I'm newer to the area. I'd like to stay in the area. My friends who live up in that area, 2026, 2027 doesn't work. We need answers and we need fixes now, especially for the entire city. Point blank.
Understood.
Changes need to happen now. Last time when it went out because of the heat, that was the 3rd time. We can understand once, twice, maybe in a year. It's all the time. It's getting ridiculous. It went out because of the heat. After 15 minutes, I was done. I called AEP and I asked them and I said, what is it going to take for the city of Barberton to move to your services? Straight up. I don't know. They told me to call PUCO. I did. I told them what I wanted to do. They said to file a complaint, and I'm still waiting to hear back from them. Fix it.
Understood.
Okay?
Yes.
Please, all of you. This is getting ridiculous. I'm speaking for 25. I'll take it. I'm speaking for 25,000 people. I'll say what these 10 can, and I'll keep these 10 accountable to keep you guys held accountable. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I have one last, this is just a quick one, you may not know. Director Shreve mentioned the single copper lines there. The EPA wanted us to get the, what lead pipes we had for our water going into the
Water meter
houses.
stuff.
And we had to rely on our residents to take pictures of them so we could track how much. We didn't get any money to do that, by the way. They just told us you have to map out where there's possible lead. How much in Barberton are still these single copper? Is it still quite a bit?
So I don't have the exact number, but
I didn't know if that was something that was tracked.
Just for clarification here, we do have single-phase services throughout our service territory that the conductor could be various types of materials, whether it be copper, a multiple stranded copper, aluminum. So we do have single-phase service that we still provide and construct today, that meets the needs of the connection that's being requested. So just because it's a single conductor doesn't, again, allude to it's out of date.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate the time and the conversation. So again, Amy's your point of contact, and we work very closely together. So appreciate the time.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll give you some time to get laptop.
Appreciate that.
Yep. All right, that's all we have for citizens addressing council and presentations. Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back and continue our committee reports. Hang on.
Thank you. Are we starting? No?
No.
Okay, sorry. I just have a quick, whenever you're ready.
Oh, when we start, official business?
Sure.
Did you see that?
Okay. Mr. Heidick asked about the ad for the CED, and this is what Hannah replied, or I texted Hannah to make sure. And she had notified the mayor's office that they will be posting the legal notice we posted in the Barberton Gazette regarding the CED that is presented to the Committee of the Whole meeting July 7th. A purchase order will need to be in place to remit the payment for the legal notice. They received a quote from the Gazette for $144. The quote is for 2 publications, July 10th and July 17th. Then she received an email from Kurt Imler, here's a proof, our publishing date is on Thursday, so the actual paper date will be 7/10 and 7/17. And she says, those dates work in our timeline, the proof is good to proceed forward. I will put in a purchase order to cover the costs. So, it's moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Miller. All right, so next up is committee reports. So we'll start with street, sidewalk, and lighting with Mrs. Beck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Street, sidewalk, and lighting met this evening. We had one topic of discussion, a request from Mayor William Judge for $20,000 to cut down disease trees. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Beck. Environmental Health and Social Services, Mrs. Hager. Mrs. Hager is absent. Co-chair, Mr. Griffin.
We have nothing to report, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Planning, Annexation, and Codes, Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, Annexation, and Codes is calling for the following. Legislation to amend Ordinance 18/2022, amending Barberton Codified Ordinance, Chapter 1462, ICC International Property Maintenance, with a change to reflect wording, emergency wording. One reading has been requested. Legislation amending Ordinance 118/2024, Chapter 1478 of the Barberton Codified Ordinances of the revised rental property registration program to reflect change in wording. Emergency wording, one reading requested. Legislation to rescind Ordinance 80/2025, and legislation to create a community entertainment district. With that, I pass.
I'm still checking boxes. Thank you, Mr. Heidick. City Properties, Parks and Recreation, Mr. Eastlake.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had 4 ordinances that we discussed at our committee meeting. One is ordinance number 77/2025, and that's to rescind the ordinance 54/2025, the sale of municipal-owned commercially zoned properties, and ordinance rescinding ordinance 54/2025, sale of municipal-owned commercially zoned properties and declaring an emergency. That was one. The second one is the sale of property at West Tusk Avenue. The partials, an ordinance authorizing the sale of certain real property consisting of 0.0666 acres of land and improvements thereon along West Tusk Avenue and identified as permanent partial, number 01.05664 and 01.05666 in the Summit County records for purchase price of $1, repealing all ordinances in conflict therewithin and declaring an emergency. Then we had 79/2025, sale of properties, municipal-owned, commercial, and industrial zone properties, and ordinance enacting section 212.02 of the codified ordinances of the city entitled Sale and Disposal of Real Property to establish procedures for the sale, conveyance, disposal, and transfer of interest in real property and declaring an emergency. And finally, ordinance 82/2025, it's disposal of city property at the Wygant Building, an ordinance authorizing the city of Barberton to dispose of city property as broken, unsafe, and no longer needed, and declaring an emergency. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Eastlake. Just to be clear, those were already passed?
That's what.
Okay. So there was no new pieces of...
No, nothing new.
Okay, thank you. All right, Public Welfare and Safety, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Welfare and Safety met on June 23rd at the Active Adult Center due to the power outages. And we have one request for legislation, a letter from Chief Vincent Morber, Barberton Police Department, requesting legislation to appropriate $70,810.84 from the unappropriated item of the city grant fund to the police department's budget of the city grant fund for body camera payment. Emergency wording requested, and we referred it to finance. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Rules, Marketing and Development, Ms. Gerhart.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules, Marketing and Development met on Monday, June 23rd at the Active Adult Center. And we called for one piece of legislation, and this was going to be to place a ballot initiative for alcohol sales in the downtown community entertainment district. Since then, this has been requested to be withdrawn. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Ms. Gerhart. City Utilities, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities met on June 23rd at the Active Adult Center. All members of my committee were present. We had no legislation to call for, but we had several residents to speak. They spoke about the power outages that we have had. And we adjourned at 6:52. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Finance and Personnel, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week, council voted on all pending legislation in finance. And this evening, we met at 6:12 p.m. And we are calling for the following legislation. The first being a request from Stacy Carr, our planning director, to allow for the payment of 4 past due invoices to Retzel Consulting Solutions. Emergency wording and one reading requested. We had a referral from safety, the request from Chief Vincent Morber of the Police Department, requesting legislation to appropriate $70,810.84 for the purchase of body camera, the payment of the body cameras. Next, we had a request from Jamie Eisman, Director of Public Safety and Human Resources, to amend employees not included in bargaining pay grades, emergency wording, one reading requested. Next, we had a request from Jeremy Claker, our Finance Director, requesting legislation to amend Ordinance 120/2006. This is to amend the amount from $5,000 to $1,005,000. Emergency wording, one reading requested. Next, we had the referral from Streets, which was a request from Mayor William Judge, requesting an appropriation of $20,000 for the use of the removal of fallen or dangerous trees. Emergency wording, one reading requested. For miscellaneous discussion, we did talk about the past due invoices, and as well as got a update from Mr. Shreve regarding the cutouts, and we adjourned at 6:27. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. That concludes our committee reports. I have nothing to report. Everybody still have all their fingers? All right. That means it was a good weekend. Comments from the body? Anything from the body? Mr. Harris?
I will say that looking at the police log, we had numerous amounts of calls about fireworks, starting July 3rd through, I think, last night.
Probably, yeah.
It'll probably go tonight, too.
I hope not.
All right. Is there anything else from the body? Mrs. Thompson?
Thank you. I just wanted to say, because our representative from First Energy was done, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for, speaking the truth here, and to Mr. Shreve especially. Love seeing that fire, because we are all, tired of this, and it's hard when there's really nothing you can do, right? So, I think it helps just everybody being on the same page. We're all frustrated. Hopefully something changes. And I just want to thank everybody who took the time to, say something, do something. It means a lot, because this is an emergency for some people. I have residents calling, I'm on oxygen, I haven't had power in 6 hours, so That's all.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Is there anything else from the body? Anything from department heads? All right. Mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Luca from CSB for being here this evening. They've got a great mission, and if you've ever been a part of it or shadowed them or visited them, it's very heartbreaking to see some of the situations that they have to deal with. Want to thank all the residents who were here tonight, City Council, and all the ones from that we've received emails from or 2 weeks ago. All the feedback we received on the power outages. It does make a difference to communicate and to send those emails and to log it with First Energy. Want to thank First Energy for being here, though, tonight as well. But also thank City Council for coming in, signing the PUCO letter that we put together. Received an email from the Akron Beacon Journal today to do a follow-up. Called him back. His phone wasn't working, so I sent him an email. So I hope to hear something very soon from PUCO and some more from First Energy. So I do want to thank Todd Shreve for his comments today. He did spend quite a few years over in the city of Wadsworth in the electrical department. I'm not sure if that was the exact name of the department, but he speaks that language, and I don't think it's no offense. It's not normal for regular people to speak that language. So thank you for your insight and your feedback. Change for Change, still putting confirming the details. There's a young lady who just finished Barberton High School that has ovarian cancer, so we want to do something special for her. There's some other fundraisers in the community to help her as well, so we're confirming those details, and we'll get that out to everybody. Christmas in July has started, collecting non-perishables and toiletries for Common Thread, Salvation Army, and Backham. City Building and Lake Anna YMCA are drop-off spots for this month. I sent City Council an email. You may not have received it. Sent prior to council. A lot of different bits of information. Part of that is SUMA. There's a public meeting on July 30th. Public meeting from 6 to 7:30 at the Akron Summit County Library, downtown Akron, to discuss the proposed usage of the funds of the sale of SUMA to HATCO. And this is kind of forced. It's part of the Attorney General's rules or guidelines to have the sale go through. There has to be a public hearing, and so that's when it's going to be held on July 30th from 6 to 7:30. So hope to see everyone there so we can discuss and see what the proposal is. And just finally, please keep the victims and the families and friends of those who, from the flooding down in Texas, just check the news feed. It's over 100 victims, many of them young people, young women from the camp there. So just keep them all in your prayers there. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions. Yes.
When was the meeting with SUMA?
July 30th.
Okay.
As I get more information, I'll pass that on.
Okay.
6 to 7:30, downtown Akron.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? All right, thanks.
All right, thank you, Mayor. All right, typically this is where we pack our bags and get out of here, but we do have an executive session. Just note for anybody public and anybody watching, there is no official business after this executive session. However, we will resume the recorder just as we wrap up, but I don't know if we'll have the last couple seconds on live stream. But there is no any business, no communication. We're just going to go from executive session to leaving. So, request was made by William Judge, Mayor of the City of Barberton, to enter into an executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, or promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employees or officials. Having stated this request, I'll entertain a motion to enter into an executive session. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to enter into executive session.
Thank you. Mrs. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll second the motion to enter into executive session.
All right, thank you. It's moved by Mr. Heidick and second by Mrs. Thompson to enter into an executive session to consider matters to be kept, well, confidential. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
President Greer.
Yes.
Mr. Heidick.
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson.
Yes.
Mrs. Hager is absent. Mr. Easterling.
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Here.
Mrs. Beck.
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Griffin, was that a yes?
Yes.
Just making sure. All right, we're now in executive session at 6:13, or, sorry, 8:13.